And welcome, everybody, to the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider. And on today's show, we'll be joined by Caleb Ballard. You see, down in Hopkinsville, there's a big to-do going on regarding a mega school. It's Hopkinsville, Kentucky, down there in Christian County. And it's a very intricate and interesting thing. Normally, I can research topics a lot of times on my own, but when you have some hyper-local, hyper kind of seemingly corrupt issues going on, it really helps to have somebody who's there, who's really dug into it. And I know there's some other places like Bardstown there, Nelson County, that's also having some mega school talks and all over. And so I thought it would be a great time to bring on somebody to go ahead and talk about it. So Caleb, thank you for joining me today to go over what's going on down there. Yeah, real quick. So you've got a mega school being built in Hopkinsville there in Christian County?
Yeah, that's right. And matter of fact, the groundbreaking for it is tomorrow, even though they've already been pushing dirt up for a week. But they got to have their ceremonial groundbreaking. And
so what is it? Is it the mega school? Is it going to be every single kid in the county, or is it?
Yes, it is. It is a combination of our two high schools that we have currently now, which would be Christian County High and Hopkinsville High. And of course, those schools are been in the community. Christian County was started in the '60s, and then Hopkinsville is an old school. It's been around for over 100 years, 150 years, something like that. And of course, the schools were not built that long ago. Of course, Hopkinsville High was built in the early '60s, and then Christian County High was built in the late '60s.
Okay, and is it just the two high schools coming together, or is it middle school?
That is their plan. That is their plan. But we have learned through this process that is starting to trickle down, because right now we have a Christian County middle and a Hopkinsville middle, and they're actually planning to move. So the Christian County middle was built in 2011 next to the Christian County High School. It's one of the nicest middle school facilities in the state. It's got a performing arts center. No expense was spared on that school when they built it in 2011, 2012, something like that. And now Hopkinsville Middle School was built in the 70s. It's got that 70s pod style design, blocks everywhere, bricks, And they just decided to move that school to a current elementary school, remove that elementary school from the picture, put an elementary school in Hopkinsville Middle School, and turn another elementary school into a daycare that's currently at the elementary school they're going to turn into Hopkinsville Middle. It is a mess.
And what is so the community doesn't want this to go on. So let's do this. Why is the school district saying they need to do this, and why doesn't the community want it done?
The school district's plan all along for all of this is economic development. That's the main goal here. And we see the actors that have been partaking in this. It's always the same actors. It's always the workforce development, the economic development council. Even at one time it was the mayor and then the judge executive. Just all kinds of big actors, big political actors that want this common goal that the community doesn't want. And I've spoke to hundreds and hundreds of people, and it's overwhelmingly the population is against all of this plan.
How does combining the schools create the economic opportunity? How does that play into the economic development side?
I think what their plan is that if they have nice new schools here, when they bring these people in to tour the community, they can say, hey, look at our nice new schools. This is how much we care about education. When in actuality, it's the opposite. They don't care about education, because all of the studies that are out there say that smaller community-based schools are better, not combination mega schools.
And so they're building this mega school for the high school, and it looks like they are trying to do like a mega school for the elementary school.
Well, kind of, sort of, right? Yeah,
at that middle school. Yeah,
right. And it all started back in 2015. They closed 3 elementary schools, and that was the first part. That was the first like red flag for the community that something was wrong with our school district, because they just closed these 3 elementary schools. One of them had a brand new roof. Like, they weren't bad facilities, and now our elementary schools are hurting. They put 6th graders from the middle schools. They closed the middle school, turned it into an elementary school, and put 6th graders from the middle schools in the elementary schools. Well, now they want to turn all that around again. So we're really just confused on what the long-term goal is here, and people that want good community schools need to have a good long-term goal, and we don't have that.
And so you're asking, as the community, you're saying, look, we don't want these big mega schools. We want individual schools spread out in the area. They're already built. They're in fine condition. And their response to that is that they're not in great condition, that it's cheaper to build a mega school. What are they saying back to the community?
So what our issue started out with was in 2019. There was some major issues at Hopkinsville High School. A Nashville news anchor that's an investigative journalist, his name's Phil Williams, he come and did a story about how Hopkinsville High School was leaking. Well, I was a graduate of Hopkinsville High School 2011, and it was leaking then. And they just continued to let the problem fester until they were like, oh, hey, there's a news anchor here. Maybe we should do something. So that sparked a nickel tax. They had this big, huge campaign about how we need to build new schools for our community with the nickel tax.
Can you explain what a nickel tax is to listen? I know what it is, but
Right. Well, it is basically a 5-cent tax on every $100 of real property that you own. Christian County is a majority of the people in Christian County are rental-based tenants, you would say. So our landowners are these big farmers. I mean, myself included. We own a pretty good sized farm here too, but it's not compared to the other farmers. There's farmers that are way bigger than me. And it's just an unfair burden on the farming community as a whole, because the majority, Christian County is the second biggest landmass, and the landmass as a whole isn't populated with houses everywhere. So the majority of the tax burden would go on those landowners and not necessarily the general public, because of our rental-based income and our rental-based it's not good for the overall wealth of the community to put the burden on one group of people. So
they're saying, look, we got a leaky roof. We need nickel tax to pay for this leaky roof.
That's correct.
And that's how it started.
Yes. And it was defeated 2-1. A group of individuals, there's a guy named Mark Graham. He was one of the leaders of this. And we started, so you get a petition. So any tax that a school district invokes over like 4%, you can recall that tax. And then you have to get like a percentage of the voter base to sign. It's 2,000 some odd people that you had to get to sign this petition. And then once you do that, then you can put it on the ballot. And we put it on the ballot. And they lost. They spent $40,000 on a campaign, on a marketing campaign, Facebook. Every van in the district had a sticker on the side of it that said, vote for the nickel. They got people T-shirts. I mean, it's just all kinds of immense waste for them to have.
Seems like you could have fixed the roof.
Yeah,
seems like you could have fixed a roof for around 40,000, right?
Right.
Maybe it would have been more. I don't know how much it would have been, but still, you ain't got money for roof, but you got money for T-shirts and a $40,000 political campaign.
Oh, it was crazy. And they had people that were just paid to do like nickel stuff. Like there was a woman that run for state senator. Her name is Pam Dawson. And she's nicknamed in the community Nickel Pam because she was just basically working on the nickel tax while she's working for the school system. I mean, but she was basically the campaign manager for the nickel tax.
So the nickel tax fails, and then they
Yes.
say what? Hey, look, nickel tax fails. Our schools are running down. We're going to have to, we don't have the money, but somehow we're going to build this mega school.
See, that's where they got us. So 2019 is when the nickel tax failed. Our superintendent quit. The mayor that was pushing it quit, went to become the economic development director. So in 2020, our new superintendent promised, hey, I'm going to get everything right. I'm going to fix all of our problems. Don't worry about it. Just let me handle it. So we backed off on him. We trusted him. We thought that he might be able to do this. So they formed a committee in late 2020 when you could not eat indoors at a restaurant in Kentucky, as you very well know. They formed a committee to start the discussion about the consolidated high school. They were given misleading facts. The committee was given misleading facts from the school system from the start on how it'd be cheaper, how it'd be better because we're going to introduce these new programs. And so a lot of this stuff got done.
How was it? What do you have any examples of what they specifically gave that was misleading?
They gave cost savings, which we turned out that was a lie. They were going to introduce these new programs with Ford. It's called Ford NGL, Next Generation Learning. They were going to introduce that. Well, they run out of money to do that. They can't do that now. Their real big focus is on these career pathways through like the tech school and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we're coming to find out that they ain't even got the money to do all what they want to do with that. They had this big, it was during, so they did all of the committee stuff. The general public found out about the mega school in about May of 2021 is when everybody got on board. That's when they started going out to they didn't bring us to the public first. They brought it to like individual community like groups, like Farm Bureau was one of the first groups that they put on Facebook, and they went to them first before telling the community. So it's like they were trying to sell it to the upper elites of the community before they even put it out to the general public. Hey, this is what our plan is.
So we got to take a break real quick, but when we come back, I'm going to ask you about, as far as, so they were rolling this out, kind of hiding it from y'all. And then we'll talk about what the response was as they initially announced it right after we come back. Let me tell you guys about an event that I'm actually emceeing on September 16th. It's the Constitutional Kentucky's 4th Annual Liberty Dinner. Let me tell you, this is a great time with amazing food. You're going to hear some great speakers like Lee Watts from Patriot Point, Second Amendment advocate Lucretia Hughes Cluckin, and of course, yours truly. Do all this while enjoying an evening surrounded by liberty-loving individuals like yourself. Get your tickets now at constitutionalkentucky.com. Once again, that is constitutionalkentucky.com. Purchase those tickets before supplies run out. Listen up, my fellow business owners. You need to get your cybersecurity and IT support under control. Reach out to the folks at Amston today. Call 859-300-0087 or visit amston.com. It is no secret that cyber attacks have become a constant threat, and you need to make sure that your organization is protected. Amston has over 30 years of experience working with businesses and governments alike. Call 859-300-0087 or visit AmstonAMPSTUN.com today. All right, so we're hearing about the kind of the situation leading into this defeated nickel tax. A lot of the people quit. They're coming back on board. Right. They're going out. They're kind of secretly campaigning for this mega school. Then they go ahead and they roll it out to the community. What was the community's initial response to it? And what do you think drove that community response to it?
So the initial community response, they did at first. They made a Facebook page called CCPS High School Facilities. You can still search it. They just changed it to the school name, but they did a video, like a 10-minute video. It was the assistant superintendent and the superintendent, and they just basically broke down the general details of what their vision was. Yes, both of our high schools are older. Do they need renovation? Yes. But they got a great number of COVID funds, like $30 million in COVID funds.
And how did the community respond?
The community response was it was not good. It was well, it was mixed at first, because at this time they were still allowing Facebook comments on their site. So that while doing this, people were. I was actually
they've shut down Facebook comments on their posts.
Oh yes. Once the school actually passed, they cut the YouTube live feed for their board meetings recently. That was a recent addition. But in 2021, they completely disabled comments on Facebook for the public school system.
Is it still that way?
Oh yes. They have not changed that policy. And then they took it a step further. They were doing all their live stream YouTube meetings for the school board meetings, where everyone in the community can get on YouTube and watch the board meetings and see the transparency in the community. They just cut that whenever they did the bids for the school,
because the community was pushing that, and so the community saying, "Look, this is a giant waste of money. Just rehab the schools we have built. We don't need to be sending all the kids to one school. You know, obviously, this are community things. You know, we don't want to drive. You know, how far is it from one side of the county to the other?"
So it is like 33 miles wide one way and like 26 miles the other way. But if you were to get on a bus in North Christian and ride a route to the school, the proposed site, you're talking 2-hour bus rides for kids. And then you throw the middle school mess in.
Some issues.
Oh yes, then you throw the middle school mess in, where you don't have a central middle school location for both middle schools, and it just complicates everything. It turns transportation upside down in the community. They don't have enough bus drivers for the routes they have now. They put on Facebook 2 days last week that if your kid rides, I'll say whatever bus, it was like bus 200. If your kid rides bus 200, you have to come pick your kid up from school, because we don't have enough bus drivers to cover this route. They did that 2 or 3 times last week.
And now they're talking about longer routes.
Longer routes, more buses needed because of the splitting of the schools. And then some of your elementary schools, like in the mornings, those kids get off of that bus, get onto another bus, and ride to Hopkinsville. Because all of our elementary schools are...
With having 2 different high schools, you can do a kind of a split start time, and you can, bus drivers can work one school and then they can switch over to the next school and bus those kids.
Right. What they're doing now is kids from County Middle County High and County Middle. Those kids are riding the same bus. So you have middle schoolers and high schoolers riding the same bus in some of the northern parts of the county where it's not as populous. And then the same thing with Hopkinsville High kids and Hopkinsville Middle School kids ride together. And the other thing is, these communities...
Are the middle schools right near the high schools?
Located in right next door, both of them.
Oh, okay. So right now,
so
they've got a high school and a middle school together. So they're able to route middle school and high school at the same time, making more efficient routes. And instead, they're going to move both high schools that are right next to middle schools to one mega school.
Correct.
But they're going to leave the middle schools alone for now. And then they're going to wonder how they're going to get kids to school now.
Correct. Well, they're going to change the one middle school that's the older middle school, which would be Hoptown. They're going to turn it in. They're going to take it to the elementary school that's our newest elementary school.
And then
it's a
where's that middle
complete
school
mess.
going to go?
Well, the elementary school is getting disbanded. It's Martin Luther King
So the middle
Elementary,
school
and
that's
it's
there
actually
now
getting
is
disbanded.
so middle
It's
school
the
that's there
elementary
now is
school.
what?
It's going to become the new Indian Hills Elementary, because the
Right,
Indian
right.
Hills.
But what are those
they're,
middle
they're
school students going to do?
That's a good question, because I've been at both schools in the last couple of weeks during let out time, and a lot of those kids walk because they're in communities that are well established, and a lot of those parents live over there because their kids can walk to school, to walk to after school practices. The new
But
mega
where are the
school
middle
isn't even
school
going to
kids
have.
like physically going to go? Where are they going to take them to go to school?
That's a good question. We don't know any of the transportation issues. The fine details are not here in this process.
I'm not even talking about a fine detail. I'm just like, where is this middle school kid's classroom going to end up at if you're taking over an elementary school here?
Yeah, well, we're eliminating. Yeah, we're just going to disband that elementary school is what the plan is,
and then,
because that elementary
but the middle
school,
they're moving to that middle school, right?
No, it's an elementary school. They're turning
the elementary school
into
a
middle school.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So they're disbanding an elementary school.
It's confusing.
Yeah, okay,
Correct.
gotcha. So they're disbanding an elementary school.
Yeah. Yes.
And going to move middle schoolers there, and then take the current middle school. And so they're basically doing a school swap between elementary and a middle school.
Correct. Because apparently middle school kids can't learn in a building that was built in 1974, but elementary school kids can. We don't understand it, because in 2019,
is that their stated reason for the move?
No, that's not their stated reason, but through the discovery process, they talked about equitable transitions. So county high,
what does that mean?
County middle is a newer middle school. It's built in 2011, 2012, opened like 2013 something. And Hopkinsville Middle School has not been rehabbed like they have done nothing to this school since I went there and since the 70s. Like they added on to the gym because of a flood, but other than that, the school is basically the same as it was in 1974. And they're moving kids from a school that was built in the 60s to a school that was built in the 70s and calling that an equitable transition. I don't know about that.
So they're simply moving them because the school's a decade newer, but still built 50 years ago?
Correct. They told us in 2019 that schools that were 50 years old were not suitable for the modern learning environment. And I don't know if they've looked at their district facility plan in a while, but they've got a lot of schools that are coming up on that 50-year mark too. So what are we going to do? We're just going to delete all the schools that are older than 50 because we don't have the money to do what we're doing now. So how are we going to make this work?
That is, I mean, I know, Caleb, when I'm learning math, if I look around and I'm like, that brick right there is 50 years old, I can't learn math anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm distracted by the fact that that brick is 50 years old. My abilities to learn, my learning pathways have been shut down. I am just looking around like, wow, look at this place.
Yeah.
So that's their stated reason. Okay. So I guess, I mean, the next question would be, well, when we come back, we'll talk about the kind of moving forward. So they're moving around all these schools. The community's against it for obvious reasons. We're talking about we're shuffling around middle schools, elementary schools for no good reason. We're moving what was two high schools that were right next to the middle schools. We're now moving those high schools to a central building. Is those middle schoolers moving? What are they doing with the high school buildings, the old ones?
That is our next question that we have never figured out. They can't.
Are they younger than 50 years old?
No, Hopkinsville High was built in the early 60s, I think like 63, and then County was built in the late 60s, like 68, 69,
See,
something
you
like
can't
that.
learn in those schools. You can't learn in them. They're over 50 years old.
No,
So,
no.
you're just
But
going to
we're
have to
still
knock them
gonna
down.
Well, that's the other problem we have is they can't afford to knock the old county middle that's sitting next to the high school right now. They can't afford to knock it down. It's still sitting there. It's been sitting vacant for 10 years now. They had an alternative
So we
program
got
in there at one point.
So we got a school district that's broke, saying they need all their schools less than 50 years old, while they're
Correct.
shuffling kids around inside schools that are over 50 years old,
Correct.
while they're building a shiny new high school instead of just
Correct.
rehabbing their old schools, simple remodels, things like that.
Using all of our bonding capacity too.
So
we'll
we'll get to that. So we'll talk
Okay.
about kind of where things are now when we come back after this. 859 Print has local service and low prices. I personally have done tons of business with them, and I can tell you, whether it is getting things printed off, sending direct mail, making business cards, buying TV ad time, digital marketing, they can do it all. And as a special for listeners of this show, they're offering 10% off any and all print services using code RIDER2024. That is code RIDER 2024 for 10% off. Check out 859 Print. You'll be glad you did.
Lexington Overstock Warehouse is Central Kentucky's best source for stylish new home furnishings. Don't pay retail. With our low overhead operating structure and big name brands, we offer the absolute best values on new furniture for every room. Shop online anytime at LexingtonOverstockWarehouse.com or visit our weekends only showroom located at 156 West Tiverton Way. Right now, for listeners of this show, we're offering a special discount for our online customers. Use coupon code FREEDOM for an additional 10% off your online order today. Lexington Overstock Warehouse, low overhead equals really low prices.
All right. So prior to this, we've found out that the school district, for the stated reason of kids can't learn in buildings are 50 years old, this school district that doesn't have the money to even demolish old buildings has decided to take on large construction projects. You said they're breaking ground, quote unquote, tomorrow, which when our listeners listen to this would be today.
That's correct.
And so they're breaking ground today. How are they paying for the current school if they're so broke they can't demolish other schools?
So COVID allowed them to get a whole lot of funds from the federal government. The state government gave them a lot of money. I think the state of Kentucky gave them like $15 million in a CTE grant, but it was to rebuild existing CTE facilities, not build a new one. Well, somehow they got an exemption from that. And a lot of this comes from a bill called HB 678. And that was passed in the Kentucky legislature, I think in 2022, I think, or maybe 2021. It was during COVID. And basically what that House bill allows them to do. So right now, if you look at it like this, you got the state government and then you got the KDE. They're kind of the godfather. They're the ones that tell the school district what you can do with the money that comes from the state. They tell you can build a school. So the whole nickel tax thing was they couldn't rehab schools that were over 50 years old per KDE guidelines. Well, with HB 678, you eliminate the KDE guidelines. You only are required to fill out a BG1, which is a building grant fund application to the KDE, and that's all the interaction you have with the KDE until I think it's June of 2024 that goes out. But it's one of those. It was good in concept, but when you have something like this, where the school district needed to have guidance,
well, it's good in
like
concept until you have a school board that has no clue what they're doing. I mean, the concept here is great until you have a school board that, and that's probably what it was about. It was about making sure because, in the break you had mentioned bonding. There's loans that are issued based upon the quote unquote bonding potential, which means that how much in tax revenues they're going to be bringing in and on as such. And that essentially acts as if a line of credit into the future. So, and when they talk, you'd mentioned that they're bonding potential's maxed out, which means they essentially have no line of credit.
So now what we have is during the building process through these open records requests, I have found that the bonding capacity was $137 million in April of 2022. It didn't go up that much. And right now they said with the bids they got in July that the school would cost $140 million, but we're not getting athletic fields. We may or may not get a gym. Like they deleted a whole entire wing out of the school to save $460,000 in furniture costs. They aren't even going to air condition the ag and the automotive labs in this new school. That was a question from the architect in the emails. He said, should we, since we're in cost saving, should we be air conditioning the ag and automotive labs? They got garage doors. That's going to bring the cost up. I mean, that's the kind of cost cutting that they're trying to do just to get this done.
Mm-hmm. So they're not even so they're building a building because they need a shiny new facility.
Correct.
But the
Correct.
building itself won't even have basics like HVAC.
In certain areas, yes. Now
Yeah.
they're talking about state of the art. Yeah. They're talking about like state of the art cost saving $300,000 a year on energy costs and stuff like that. They're talking about that, but then they're talking about disadvantaging kids that might want air conditioning because it's hot in an automotive shop and an ag shop. I've been there. It's pretty hot in those environments. So you
Yeah,
want air
I mean,
conditioning,
absolutely.
you hope. And
Absolutely.
so and they did this bid process. So we were following along. We tried to stay informed with it because the amount of information coming from the central office was null. There wasn't any coming out. So we were having to open records request a lot of this stuff. Well, a guy open records requested the advertisement for the bids that they had for the school, which is required by the KDE and Model Procurement Code in the state of Kentucky. It's
Sure.
I think it's 45365 is the legal genre or whatever, the legal book you can find that at. And so when we open records requested it, they didn't even have an advertisement for the current bids that they had already bid or they already had out for builders, which we were like, okay, well that's kind of
Do you know who the
funny.
builder is on this?
So they got a construction manager, so it is a whole bunch of different hands involved in this. AK Construction is one of the people, and they have a school in like Hanson. That was supposed to be built last year.
Yeah, they've been missing deadlines on schools like crazy recently. In
that,
actual Hopkins County,
yes.
there's a school that I think their entire school district is like delayed because they didn't build a school on time. AK Construction.
That's the people we're dealing with here. And so when we found out that they hadn't done the bid, the bid advertisement, they rushed. There's an email thread where they rushed and said this must be put in the New Era paper, which is our local newspaper, which that's where it has to run according to the law. They rushed to get it done on a Saturday. Then they advertised the wrong bid opening date, and it's too far out. So the requirement is not more than 21 days in the paper, but before 7 days prior to the bid opening. So you can't just put the advertisement out a month in advance and it fit the KDE requirement or the legal requirement. And so they delayed the bid opening date to July 24th and didn't advertise it at all, which is against Model Procurement Code altogether. And without the KDE's help to come in here and say, hey guys, we need to come in here and you need to be advertising bids with House Bill 678, you don't have that guidance to show them what needs to go on. So there's no accountability. The only place we can file complaints right now is if they break open meetings laws, the AG, or a place called the Office of Education Accountability. Now, they're a legislator-funded organization, and they told me they are slow, but they are thorough. But that is our only complaint department right now as citizens and taxpayers in this community to get anything done. And we just don't know right now because we know that the bids were illegal. They shouldn't be starting this project at all. But here they are breaking ground and continuing full steam ahead, as the superintendent said. And he even mentioned the OEA investigation in a Hoptown Chronicle article, which is a local newspaper type deal thing. And he said that the lawyer had put out a statement. Well, we haven't seen the statement. I'd love to see the statement and see what their legal ground for breaking the law is.
Yeah, so it looks like here you got a situation where you have let me see if I can sum this up. They are building a big school against the wishes of their constituents that they don't even have the money to outfit properly, while they also still don't have the money to knock down the buildings they need to, while they're playing a shuffle game with students because they don't know why. Meanwhile, through this process, they've maxed out their line of credit. They're maxed out on bonding potential. So therefore they can't really borrow more money. And then even if something emergency comes up, like a school gets flooded or something, they can't do anything about it. And then
they'll be looking at us.
Yeah. And then, so you've got that, and now you have the fact that they didn't even bid out this multi-million-dollar contracts properly in order to bid this out. But despite all that, they're breaking ground anyways. They've disabled comments on their Facebook page. And right now you can only talk to one group to kind of get some accountability out of them, but still they're pushing forward ahead anyways. I think that pretty much sums it up real quick, right?
Yeah, and I'll dive even deeper into the no comment thing. So at the YouTube feed, we got a video of the construction manager, which they've had to hire a construction manager because they openly admitted after their bids come in last year in July of 2022 at $200 million, way over budget. And they knew it was way over budget because they over-designed the school. The architect allowed them to over-design the school. They got mud on their face when they got those bids back last year. So then we had this delayed process of, well, we're going to cut this wing and we're going to cut this. We're going to start cutting the things that we promised the community out of the school just to get it done. So, and that doesn't make any sense. So when they got the bids back this last time, they didn't have a public meeting. So me and another guy went to the Board of Education, and I guess the superintendent was out of town that day, but that still doesn't give them an excuse. They wouldn't give us the bid packet. After 24 hours, that should be available to the public. And
yeah, you should be able to view publicly any who bid how much. I mean, that's just standard government bidding.
They wouldn't do it. They would not give us the bid packets. And so that Friday, the superintendent sent out a memo to the chief of police in Hopkinsville here, asking for a security guard to sit at the board office getting paid $40 an hour to just monitor the board office while all this, during the current budget issues, is what they said. And just because me and one other person come to ask for the bids, they now have to have like this secure lockdown facility when they could just give us the open bids if they're good. So that Monday is the first day of the comp. They were going to do a board retreat on Tuesday. Monday, they brought all the members of the press together in a secret meeting and told them the basic bid package, the money and all what the school was going to entail. They embargoed the information through the media and wouldn't let them let it out until they got done with the board meeting on Tuesday. So they put a muzzle on our media. The next board meeting, which would have been the same week, they cut the live YouTube feed that we've had for 4 years now. They just cut it off, didn't give it an answer. So that night, me and several other people text our board members and was like, hey, why'd y'all do this? They said, oh, well, it's costing us too much money. We can't do it. We can't pay these employees $25 or whatever it is that they're getting in overtime to run this YouTube meeting after school hours.
To what, hit
Well, that didn't
record
make a
and
whole lot of
live
sense.
stream it?
Oh yeah, I mean, literally, the superintendent could do it and upload it to. I mean, anybody can do it. I mean, boomers can do it. So you'd think that it's pretty simple, or they get like a student media team or something like that to come in there and do this as something to help them out. But they don't want to do that. They don't want the meetings public because we got the construction manager on film saying that the school was going to be one price, $105 million, and here we are at $140 million. And it just ain't adding up. They cut that out. Well, in a recent article that was released, they had another press conference. The superintendent said that they cut live stream YouTube videos off because of misinformation after board meetings. Because me and others were clipping.
Wouldn't it cause more misinformation?
You would think
not be able to see what they're saying in full.
Absolutely, that's kind of what we were thinking. Like. Because we take the ability to clip out what they say online, put it on our web platform, which would be Facebook, and we've got a group called Citizens Against Consolidation, and we put that information out there so people can read it because our news media isn't touching on these details. They ignore it because I don't know. The school system does pay them a lot of advertising money for like. We need teachers, we need bus drivers, stuff like that. They also broadcast the local sports. So I understand the news media. And we don't have a TV station. We're not Nashville. We're not Louisville. We don't have a TV station that would cover any of this. So a lot of stuff gets kind of under the rug if you don't bring it out from under the rug with people like me and others that are working really hard, watching these board meetings, gathering the information, gathering the intel, and then putting it out for the public. A lot of that gets lost, and for him to say that it was misinformation, that we're taking their comments and using them on our platform and it's misinformation, that really just doesn't make sense.
Well, but that's the game they play, though. They all play this at all levels.
That is correct.
If they don't like your opinion on what they said, well, then that is misinformation. Even though you're just taking what they said, then issuing an opinion, that's now misinformation. Let me ask you this. Let's end on this $1 million question. You ready?
Okay. All right.
Is this incompetence or corruption?
Both. It's a little bit of both.
Okay. Because you think it's a little bit of both?
Yeah, because you had key players like a former mayor telling the superintendent, hey, I'm going to get you the superintendent job, but I've got one goal for you, build this mega school for economic development, because we want low skill, low wage employees to shove in our factories that we're going to get here because we got all these new shiny schools. And look, we're focusing on pathways, but we're not teaching the kids the core basic stuff like math and reading. And
your buildings are
history.
Too old to teach them that. They're too old.
Yeah, we can't do that.
You know what pathways should be teaching these kids? Construction. Okay, I'm just saying. It looks like they could work where they go to school.
Right. Yeah. That is a good. I mean, that's kind of Egyptian tactic, but I mean,
it's one way around child labor laws.
That's right. That is right.
Yeah. No. We're teaching them a trade.
And that's how
we swear.
Right. And that's how broke this school district is. I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't thrown that out in the air yet.
Like, how young is too young to lay a brick? I mean,
Right. And I say that our school district is broke, but you look at our funding, the KDE has it all broke down in simple math where it ranks all the school districts. Our funding is like one of the top funding school districts, but our administrator pay is also out the roof, and our cost our pay per student is really low, and then our test scores are even lower. Deleting these old schools deletes our bad test scores. So when we get rid of a school name, that's been around. So Hopkinsville High School, when we say, we're Hopkinsville High School, we get rid of the test scores that are bad.
Caleb, thank you for joining us. We will be following along. What can people do to help? Is there anything people can do to help the situation, or is it kind of really no?
If you want to help us out, join our Facebook page. It's called Citizens Against Consolidation. It's an open Facebook group. We just basically give everybody the information that they're missing out from the school board. And the only place you can complain is the Office of Education Accountability, and we've got a link on our Facebook page, so you can click that. You can go in there and you can complain about Christian County Public Schools anywhere in the state if you wanted to, and just help out our cause, because the bid process was not done per law, and we just got a whole bunch of issues. But
well, you can't have a school
issues,
with its bonding potentials completely expended. I mean,
it's not easy to run a school district like that without any money.
No, it's not. I mean, you are down to the line.
Yeah,
down to the line. And if property value takes up,
well, see,
the economy turns.
They just had to rescind a tax because we were going to file another petition against them, and they rushed it in a meeting, didn't put it on the agenda, and put it on the agenda last minute and rescinded it without a tax hearing. So
crazy stuff. Well, I'm sorry to hear what you guys are going through, but we'll get this out there. Hopefully, spreading
it's a
the
bad
word
deal down here.
Yeah, showing more attention might be working. Well, thanks you, Caleb.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, y'all. That's what we have time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Thank you all so much for joining us. You can catch us back here on Monday at 1:00. Till then, we'll see you. Thanks.